Hello everyone. Welcome to today's story. What would you do if one day your child vanished without a trace? If the person you once loved returned, not to ask for forgiveness, but to take away what's dearest to you? In this quiet village soaked with rain and silence, a mother faces the most painful choice of all, between her past and present, between holding on and letting go. Why did Tieu Ca hesitate that morning? Who is the man watching from the shadows? And when Tu Han disappeared, was it too late to turn back? Stay with us until the very end of this emotional, heart-twisting story. And if this story moves you, don't forget to subscribe and help us reach 10,000 followers. Your support means the world and keeps stories like these alive. Let's begin. The morning sun filtered through the faded curtains, casting golden stains across the wooden floor. A kettle hissed softly on the stove as the man stirred a small pot of papaya and pork ribs, the aroma rising like a lullaby in the quiet house. Tieu Ca sat by the window, one hand resting on her round belly, the other absently tracing droplets of dew clinging to the glass. "Eat. It's good for the milk," he said, placing the bowl before her. His voice was steady, warm, like old trees in the wind. She smiled faintly. "You didn't have to cook. I could have done it." He shook his head, still crouched beside the fire. "You're carrying life. That's enough work." They spoke in half sentences, the kind of silence that lives between people who've grown used to each other. In the next room, little Han slept soundly, unaware of the world's weight. They planned her birthday, a small cake, perhaps a candle. Nothing extravagant, just something soft and sweet to remember she was loved. "I should go see my mother today," Tieu Ca said, her eyes drifting beyond the frame. He nodded. "You should." She'd want to see Han. Outside, the rain threatened to return, the sky bruised with gray. But inside this small house, life breathed in murmurs, in spoons clinking bowls, in the soft brushing of shoulders. Love lived here, not in declarations, but in the quiet tending of one another. The path to her mother's house curved through yellow grass and cracked soil. Tieu Ca held Han's tiny hand, their steps light against the hush of noon. The old house stood like a memory, bent with time but still holding its place. Bang Wai sat by the doorway, her thin hands resting on her knees, the lines on her face deeper than ever. "You've grown thin," she murmured, eyes locked on her daughter before shifting to Han. "Come here, little sparrow." Han crawled into her lap, her laughter like wind chimes. Inside, the room smelled of herbal medicine and overripe fruit. Tieu Ca placed a bag of rice on the floor, then sat beside her mother. The silence between them was thick, not cold, but weighty, full of words unsaid. "I can look after Han," Ba said, voice hoarse. "You need to work, save for the baby." Tieu Ca hesitated. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured tea. "But you're still sick." "Still breathing," the old woman replied, then smiled, cracked lips stretching. "That's enough to hold a child." They talked of fruit and medicine, of how the summer heat pressed against the walls like an unwelcome guest, of how time moved slower now, yet never waited for anyone. Han chased a cat outside. Laughter echoed through the open door, light and fleeting. 3 generations shared one room, one table, one worn-out fan spinning hope in circles. There was love here too, tired, fragile, but rooted deep. Tieu Ca held her mother's hand. Neither spoke. Both knew. Someday, one would have to let go. The shack was quiet, save for the rhythmic tapping of rain against the tin roof. Inside, a man sat still, his face half-shadowed by the dim light filtering through torn curtains. Dust floated in the air like memories refusing to settle. On the wooden table lay a torn photograph, faded at the edges. It showed a younger version of him, Tieu Ca beside him, her smile reluctant but present, and between them, a newborn wrapped in pink. He traced the baby's face with his finger. Tu Han, his daughter. He closed his eyes. She used to cry every night unless I held her, he murmured to no one. Now she doesn't even remember my voice. He rose suddenly, unable to sit still. The floorboards creaked beneath his bare feet. Around him were baskets of unripe melons, a kettle long gone cold, and a bag packed days ago but never touched. For weeks he had watched from afar. Tieu Ca, the child, the man she now shared her mornings with. A home, not his. A life, no longer his. But blood calls. I can't just disappear, he whispered. She's my child, my only. He stuffed the photo into his coat. His hands trembled, not with rage, but with something heavier. Regret, love, desperation. He looked at the cracked mirror on the wall. The man staring back was worn, older, but not yet broken. Outside, the clouds hung low, the kind that carried more than rain. He stepped into the storm with one truth in his chest. He would see his daughter again. Whether by hope or by madness, he would not walk away empty. Inside the small kitchen, steam coiled from the bowl of soup like a fragile secret. Tieu Ca blew gently over her spoon, her eyes flicking toward the closed bedroom door where Hans still slept. The man sat across from her, sleeves rolled, arms dusted with flour and care. I've boiled the porridge already. Just heat it when she wakes, he said, placing a small towel beside her. She nodded. You always do too much. He smiled, eyes crinkling. You always say that. Their words were soft, daily, familiar, and yet beneath them, something shifted, like wind brushing the surface of still water. Outside, the sound of distant hammers echoed through the misty valley. The bridge to the new house was being built. He talked about picking out mosquito nets, new blankets, soft pillows for the baby. He meant well. He always did. Tieu Ca listened, hands cupped around her bowl. But her thoughts were elsewhere. On Han. On the weight in her chest that hadn't lifted in days. A strange tightness in the air, as if something unseen had already begun. I'll go see my mother again, she said quietly. He nodded. Take Han with you. It's good for her. They sat a moment longer, silence rising like steam between them. He reached out, covered her hand with his. Whatever happens, he said, I'll care for both of you. You don't have to be afraid. But Tieu Ca's eyes had already drifted toward the window, where the rain had begun again, thin threads stitching the sky closed. Outside, not far away, someone else watched, waited. A plan unfolding in silence. The rain had passed, leaving behind puddles that mirrored the broken sky. Han sat on the steps outside her grandmother's house, humming to herself, dragging a twig across the dirt in absent patterns. Her small fingers traced circles, her lips curled in a quiet tune only children seemed to understand. A figure approached, slow, unsure at first, then steadier as he caught sight of her. "Tu Han," he called softly, kneeling to meet her gaze. She looked up, blinking, then smiled. Children remember love not by words, but by warmth. And he had once held her, rocked her to sleep beneath this same sun. Somewhere in her, she still carried that memory, blurred but intact. "Want to go for a walk?" he asked. "Just a little while. Ba will buy you something sweet." She hesitated, glancing back toward the doorway, but no one stood there. The world was still. He reached out his hand. Tiny fingers slid into his palm, trusting, light as a leaf resting on water. They began to walk, slowly at first. His heart pounded, louder than the gravel beneath their feet. Her sandals slapped the wet earth, rhythm soft, innocent. She chattered about the cat, about her birthday, about a pink dress she wanted. He nodded, silent, carrying the weight of something she could not name. As they disappeared around the bend, only a faint echo of her voice remained. A moment later, the door creaked. Tieu Ca stepped out, bowl in hand. "Han?" she called gently, but the steps were empty. The twig lay abandoned, and the world had gone too quiet. "Han?" Tieu Ca's voice cracked through the stillness, low at first, gentle, uncertain. The bowl trembled in her hands. She scanned the yard. The chair was empty, the twig still lying on the ground like a broken line of thought. A chill ran up her spine, as if the air itself had forgotten how to breathe. She stepped down the steps barefoot, the cold of the wet earth creeping into her bones. "Han, where are you, baby?" Still no answer. The wind responded instead, tugging gently at the hem of her shirt. She walked faster now, then ran, past the gate, behind the garden, under the fig tree where Han used to hide. Nothing. Only a yellow leaf spiraling down, slow, cruel in its grace. Her voice rose with panic, echoing across the open field like a torn kite flailing in the sky. "Han! Hanoi!" A crow startled from the roof, its wings slashing through the silence. The world was too big, too empty. Her feet stumbled over a stone. She didn't notice the pain. She only knew the echo inside her chest had grown deafening. Her breaths came short, each one a battle. Her mind darted back to the warmth of Han's fingers that morning, the giggle over breakfast, the way she always called for me before falling asleep. Not today. Today the wind took her name and scattered it through the hills. The house stood behind her, quiet and waiting. In her hands, the soup had gone cold. She dropped the bowl. Porcelain shattered on the stone, like the rhythm of her world. By the time the man returned from the fields, the sky had folded into shades of bruised violet. He saw Tieu Ca kneeling in the yard, her hands shaking, her face pale as ash. The broken bowl still lay scattered, sharp fragments glinting in the last light. "She's gone," she whispered before he could ask. Her voice was raw, like a thread pulled too tight. He froze. For a moment, the world shrank into silence. Only the sound of crickets rose, thin and indifferent. His boots crushed wet soil as he moved closer, but he didn't know what to say. What could words do against the hollow space where a child's laughter once lived? Tieu Ca looked at him, her eyes wide but distant. "Hun, she was just here. I called her. I ran. She's not..." Her breath hitched, collapsing into sobs that clawed at the air. He knelt, gathering her trembling hands into his own. "We'll find her," he said, though his voice shook too. "I promise." But deep in her heart, a shadow already knew. Somewhere, out there, another pair of hands held Han. Hands that once belonged in their lives but now carried only longing and regret. She felt torn, between anger, fear, and an old tenderness she didn't want to name. The night settled heavy. They sat there, silent, while the darkness closed in like an unfinished sentence. Sometimes love isn't enough to hold what was never ours to keep. Sometimes the hardest lesson is learning when to let go, if letting go is even possible. And in that silence, they both understood. Nothing would ever be the same again.
Ly Tu Diep là một người mẹ trẻ sống cùng con gái Tiểu Hân, người đàn ông và người đàn ông hiện tại. Cuộc sống của họ giản dị nhưng đầy yêu thương. Một ngày, Tieu Ca đến thăm bà ngoại, để lại con gái ở nhà. Người đàn ông cũ của Tieu Ca, cha ruột của Tiểu Hân, xuất hiện và âm thầm dẫn con gái đi mà không ai hay biết. Khi Tieu Ca trở về phát hiện con mất tích, cô hoảng loạn tìm kiếm khắp nơi nhưng không thể tìm thấy. Nỗi đau và sự tuyệt vọng dâng lên trong Tieu Ca khi cô phải đối mặt với sự thật rằng tình yêu và sự quan tâm không đủ để giữ con gái lại ở lại. Câu chuyện kết thúc trong im lặng và mất mát.